It was just another slow morning at the roadside diner, the kind of place where time seemed to stop between the smell of fresh coffee and the distant rumble of 18-wheelers. The old neon sign buzzed faintly outside, and the silver stools at the counter gleamed under the soft light of dusty ceiling fans. Inside, life moved at a quiet rhythm. Forks clinked gently against plates, and the jukebox played a tune from a decade no one remembered clearly. The regulars knew each other by name, nodding with half-smiles and warm familiarity. It was the kind of place where people nursed heartaches in silence, and where the quietest among them could disappear if they wanted to. And that's exactly what Ellie did. She moved through the diner like a shadow, unobtrusive, quiet, efficient. A 26-year-old waitress with gentle eyes and a voice rarely heard above a whisper. She didn't need to be told what to do. She just did it. Every refill, every cleared plate, every wiped-down table done without a word. But despite her silence, Ellie was impossible to miss. Not because of anything she said, but because of the scars. They ran from the corner of her jaw, down the left side of her neck, and vanished beneath the collar of her uniform. The skin was uneven, faded pink and silver like melted wax, a story no one dared ask about. She'd worked there for almost a year. No one knew where she came from. She had no friends in town, no family that ever showed up, no car of her own. She arrived quietly by bus at 6 in the morning and left just after dark. Some of the regulars figured she had secrets, but no one pushed. That's how small towns worked. If you wanted to stay invisible, people let you. Until one day, she wasn't. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for those who are often overlooked, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to our channel. These stories are meant to heal, and your support helps them reach those who need them most. That particular morning was colder than usual. A storm was rolling in, and the diner's windows fogged with the breath of customers escaping the chill. Ellie wore her usual long sleeves, but as she reached over a booth to set down a tray of pancakes and bacon, her collar slipped slightly, revealing a stretch of her scarred collarbone. 3 young men sat at booth 6 near the window. They weren't regulars. Clean-cut, fresh-faced, and loud. Probably from the nearby university, judging by their branded sweatshirts and earbuds slung around their necks. They were the kind who never left tips and always ordered with entitlement. Ellie didn't mind. She'd seen worse. But today, something changed. One of the boys leaned in as she placed their plates down and sneered just loud enough for the surrounding booths to hear. "Yo, check it out," he said with a smirk. "Looks like Frankenstein serves breakfast here." His friends chuckled. Ellie didn't flinch. She turned away, picked up the empty coffee pot from a nearby table, and walked back toward the counter. But the boys weren't done. Another called after her, voice full of mock concern. "Hey, what happened? Fall into a toaster as a kid?" The laughter this time was louder. Ellie's hand twitched around the coffee pot handle. A few customers looked up. Most went back to their food, uncomfortable but unwilling to interfere. She moved behind the counter, keeping her back to them, eyes lowered, pretending not to hear. Her fingers shook slightly as she began stacking clean cups, anything to stay busy, to stay composed. But the boys didn't stop. They kept going. Loud. Cruel. Emboldened by the silence of everyone around them. One of them mimicked a scream and then joked, "Bet she got those trying to save her ugly cat from a fire." More laughter. Louder this time. Ellie gripped the edge of the counter, willing herself not to cry. Not here. Not now. The noise around her blurred, the warmth drained from her face, and the diner, her quiet refuge, suddenly felt like a battlefield. And then, everything stopped. At the far end of the diner, a man stood up slowly. He had been sitting alone at a corner table, nursing a black coffee with no cream and a slice of toast untouched on his plate. He wore an old olive-green military jacket, the fabric frayed at the sleeves, a faded American flag patch stitched onto one shoulder. His hair was close-cropped gray, and a thick scar cut diagonally across his left hand. His name was Walter Briggs, though most folks just called him Sarge. He had served in 2 wars. Lost his wife to cancer. Raised a son who became a firefighter. And for the past 3 years, he came to this diner every morning, sat in the same seat, and said barely more than 5 words to anyone. But now, without a word, he walked steadily toward booth 6. The boys quieted as he approached, laughing less now and watching him with uncertain eyes. Walter didn't speak until he stood directly beside their table. "I earned this jacket," he said, voice low but sharp as gravel. "Not by running my mouth, but by standing up for something. You think those scars on that girl's face make her less? You should be so lucky to have scars like that." The boys shifted uncomfortably, their bravado draining fast. Walter's eyes narrowed. "You laugh at her because you don't know pain. Because you've never crawled through it. Those scars? They're proof she survived something. Something bigger than your tiny jokes and your ego." Then, he turned to Ellie. She was still behind the counter, frozen. Her eyes locked on his. She had no idea what was happening, or why this stranger had stood up. And then, Walter did something no one expected. He straightened his posture, placed his right hand over his brow, and saluted her. A full, sharp, military salute like one given to a decorated officer returning home. The entire diner went still. Not a single fork scraped a plate. Not a single breath seemed to move. Ellie stood speechless, her hand covering her mouth, her eyes welling with silent tears. The bullies were now ghosts. Invisible. Ashamed. They stood and left without a word, heads down, pushing the glass door open into the gray morning outside. Walter returned to his table, finished his toast, and paid his bill with exact change. He never mentioned the salute again. But everything changed after that. Ellie came to work the next day with her hair tucked behind her ear for the first time. She no longer covered the scars. She didn't have to. The regulars began to greet her more warmly. Some asked her how her morning was going. Dottie, the manager, gave her a raise that week without saying why. The tips got a little bigger. The smiles a little kinder. And one day, weeks later, Ellie sat across from Walter during his morning coffee. She brought him a slice of warm apple pie on the house. And for the first time since she'd arrived in that town, she told someone the truth. That she had been in a house fire at 19. That she ran back inside to save her little brother. That he didn't make it. That she barely did. That her scars were from trying to carry him through the flames. Walter didn't interrupt. He didn't ask questions. He just listened. And when she finished, he nodded slowly and said, "You're braver than most people I've known in uniform." She cried then. Not the kind of crying you hide, but the kind that sets something free. Ellie stayed in that town. Got a small apartment. Took classes at the community college. And when people asked her about her scars, she smiled softly and said, "They remind me of what I survived." Walter passed away 2 years later. His funeral was held in that same town. The diner closed early that day, and Ellie was there wearing a simple black dress with her scars uncovered, head held high. She placed a folded napkin on his casket. Inside it was a note. It read, "Thank you for seeing the soldier in me when no one else did." If this story moved you, if it stirred something inside your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps stories like Ellie's reach those who need hope, healing, and humanity. Memo special request: if you believe scars are signs of strength, not shame, please comment below with a red heart or share your own story. Let others know they are not alone.